rise once for an hour and 45 or so after kneading. Then we did like a stretch and then back into it for the second rise. You could do a third rise if you wanted to. I haven't noticed that it gains much, but if you were just needed to make your day schedule out that way. And then now we're going to take the dough and cut it into the pieces that we're going to use to make our baguettes. The full recipe that I used, which was 1,200 grams of flour, that's I think about 9 cups of flour, makes in my house and everything about 6 baguettes. So if you're doing the full recipe, you're on 6 baguettes. If you're doing the half recipe, you're going to make 3 baguettes. So we're largely limited by the size of whatever we have to put our baguettes on. So we might be using a cookie sheet like this. What I actually like to use are these. You can buy them. They're called as pizza stones. The round ones are fine for pizza, but the square ones are better for baguettes. And I actually have 2 of these now, but it works just fine on cutting on cookie toes anyway, cookie trays anyway. But it sets the size of the baguette. And what we're going to do is cut up the dough. I'm going to use a scale to weigh the dough, so they're all about the same. It doesn't really matter, big baguette, little baguette, they're all still delicious. So you can just do it by eye as well. We'll let the dough rest for about 15 minutes, and that's just because the handling of it and cutting it and everything takes some of the stretchiness out, drives some of the bubbles out. And so we'll let it sit on the countertop for about 15 minutes, and then it kind of gets nice and soft, and then we'll shape the baguettes. And I'll show you how to practice that with a kitchen towel first. The other thing is we're then going to lay the baguettes out onto something for them to rise for about 45 minutes before we transfer them to the oven. And you can do all kinds of different things. I used to use these baguette trays, the pre-folded ones. Those work great. You do have to grease them. In my experience, they tend to get a little sticky. But what I'm going to use is a more traditional and a simpler method. It's a little bit tricky, the skill of it, but it's easier in equipment, which is to use a floured towel. And so, if I were working with a tray like this, I might use like a nice big kitchen towel that's big enough to fit that tray, so I'd be able to cover, I'm able to make baguettes that are that size and lay them on this towel. So, but what I'm using is a big sheet of canvas. And so we'll get to that in a little while. You can do either a roll of canvas, which is a little nicer to have in the long run. If you keep doing this, you can get yourself some of that. Otherwise, kitchen towels work totally fine. We're also, this is all for the next step. We're going to need a few cutting boards. So I like to have kind of a skinny one like this, or any one that's thin that you'll use to pick the bread off of the towel. And then another, either 1 or 2 of like big enough that you could put, 1, 2, 3 baguettes on. And that'll be for the second step. We might just kind of keep the camera rolling during this 15-minute rest step, okay?
Hey,
all right, so for right now, all I really need is my clean countertop. I've got my scale. I have somewhere around here something to cut the dough with. So I'm using, one of these, but of course you can also just use a knife. And I've got my little bowl of flour just to flour the countertop. So we'll go ahead and switch to our other camera.
Hey, Joe.
Yep, hi.
Danielle has a question.
Oh,
okay, hi Danielle, where are you?
Hi, I wasn't sure if you could hear me. So I have this pan, one of these baguette pans. You see that?
I'm not seeing you, so for some reason, I don't know why. Hang on.
Hello, hello?
I mean, I can hear you, yeah, I'm just trying to find, yeah, those are great.
So am I gonna do the floured towel process or just skip that and put them right into this?
So you have 2 choices. What I did when I used those was I would just grease it and then put the dough on there to rise. We'll do a 45-minute rise. So I would be doing it on the towel, and you would be on those trays, cover it and stuff. And then just right on those trays, without ever moving them, we'll dust them, we'll slash them, and put them directly into the oven. If you want to play, if you want to play around with it, I find that it's a little better to put a baguette onto something that's warm. So there's something to be said for trying to do it on the floured towel, having your trays in the oven, and then just drop the baguette onto it. I have not personally tried that before, and I always had plenty good luck with just putting the cold tray straight into the oven.
Right. And so it does bake on this, right?
Yep.
This isn't just for the rising?
Yeah, absolutely. It just bakes right on that. And I have found, it's got the little holes on it, so it heats up from the bottom. And you see like tons and tons of professional baguettes that show those little dotted marks on the bottom from using those trays. And they work really great. I found that over time, just, you start to use them a little bit. They got a little, even if they were non-stick to begin with, they got a little sticky. So I tended to oil them, whatever flavor you like, olive oil, butter, something like that. And that would be before you put the wet dough on it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, okay. All right, so our dough has been on the second rise for about an hour and 45 minutes or so. So I'm just gonna pull that out of my warming space. So here's the dough the second time. Okay, nice and full. It's pretty much filled my entire bowl. It's nice consistency. It's got good give to it. It's just the slightest bit sticky. Okay, so everybody get your stuff out of the bowl. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple of spaces here. I'm going to work on the dough here, and I'm going to be using it on the scale. So I'm actually going to dust my scale ever so lightly. And then as I cut the pieces, I'm going to end up with 6 pieces. So I've got a couple of kitchen towels kind of ready to cover those pieces when they're on the counter for the 15 minutes. And I'm just going to lay them all out here. And since they'll be nice and sticky, I'm just giving myself like a nice heavy area to put 6 chunks of dough, each one of which will be 350 grams, something like that, and maybe the size of a big softball or small book, something like that. Being pretty liberal about this because I just don't want them to stick, and flour is a little harder to come by nowadays, maybe not as hard as yeast. Okay, and then I'm going to lay it out in the middle here, so I'm also giving myself a lot of space in the middle and starting to flour my hands. Okay, so I'm pretty much ready to go. Okay, so you have my scale. My scale is in kilograms. That's not going to help. Pounds and ounces. Let's do grams. Let's see. Come on, scale. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to dump the dough out. So it should come nice and easy out of the bowl. If it didn't, then you would want to use more butter or oil next time. And so I just got this big pile of dough. There's lots of ways to do this. What I like to do is just beat it down a little bit and kind of spread it out. It's almost like pizza dough. And then just fold it in half. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over too. So I've got it kind of in a log like that. Doesn't really matter too much the shape. Long and skinny. Okay. So if I have a scale, then I will just use my scale to weigh these out. Otherwise, you can just cut it in the middle and then cut each of those into 3 pieces, and that's probably pretty good as well. That'll be 6 in total. If you're doing the half recipe, you'll have 3. So I'll start off and just cut it like this. I could use a knife as well. Throw it on my scale. That's 350, so that was a good guess right away. Let's say I come up a little heavy, so I cut this one, and that's 380. So I can just take a little off. Try again. 365. I'm aiming for 350 here. Try that. Okay, so that's 350. So now I've got a couple extra pieces. Then cut this one. Maybe I'll make this one a little light. So if you put that one on, that's only 250. So I'll just add these pieces to it.
Joe.
Yep.
I got a question. Is there any practical reason why the loaves need to be the exact same size, or is this just your perfectionism?
No, not at all. I mean, there's no, if you, yeah, the latter. I'm just trying to do them in about even parts. Some of this stuff I learned like from watching videos that are from like French bakeries and stuff. And then they're, of course, pretty serious about it because everybody that you sell a baguette to, you want to have them be the exact same size. So it doesn't matter that much. But I did want to kind of show off a little bit how you can, just cut off a little bit of an extra piece and sort of add it to it until it gets to be, about the total volume that you need.
What about baking time?
Kat's asking about whether baking time matters that much. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. to be honest. So that's 350. And even though it's all kind of a little bit of a Frankenstein now, because I tied a bunch of pieces together, as long as I kind of squeeze them into place, that'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, in answer to Cliff's question, you can just cut them up into approximately, you know, thirds of the dough. So I'm just adding this, a little more. That's 340, I'll go with that. I'm gonna run out of space here, so I'll add myself a little flour. Take this one. That's 280. It looks like these are all, maybe 350 for me was a little heavy. But I'll make 2 small ones, that'll be fine. That's 265, 280, whatever. So I'll make a couple of little ones as well. So that's a 280, and that's a 280 as well. Okay, so we've got them just cut into, you know, very approximate rectangles. It doesn't matter that much. And then just to keep dust from falling on them and to keep them from drying out too much, I'm just throwing a towel over them, and we'll give them 15 minutes to rise. So I mean, not to rise so much as what's called resting. So the dough kind of recuperates and gives it, and we're able to work with it. Okay, so we're about 2:15 now. So we'll do it starting at 2:30 to do the actual shaping. Okay, but I mean, for the purposes of, I think Kat's going to stop the video just for a moment to give us to break it.